Whoops. Hey, hello, good morning. It is Tuesday, July 16th. I'm that developer dad, or you can call me Rob. And we are building a dotNet solution to help me generate some non-player characters for my D&D application. We're using dotNet 8 as the framework, C Sharp. So far, we haven't brought in any remote or external dependencies to this thing. No databases, no nothing like that. We're hard coding the rule set because the D&D 5e rule set as it exists today is pretty static, and there's not really any need to give us the ability to add any variance to it. We are sticking as close as possible to the Creative Commons version of that rule set that Wizards of the Coast released under the Creative Commons license in January of 2023, and that's going to be fairly static. So we're safe. We're safe hard coding that. Now, yesterday we got ourselves to a place where we were able to fairly easily generate some basic information about a non-player character randomly. So let me share my screen. Here we go. So we got to a point yesterday where I could open a terminal and pull that terminal over to this window so you can see what it's doing. And say .NET console client.dll, and it runs, and it creates a Dragonborn who has a background as a bit of a charlatan who is now a navigator. And that's pretty interesting. So I pulled it into Chat GPT. I'm going to copy that text. I'm going to paste it over here. Let's do another NPC generation. Here's the data. Paste it in here. And we're going to get a little bit of information about Rakash Silverwind. And you can see ChatGPT is spitting out an appearance and a personality and all that stuff, and it's doing a pretty darn good job of it. Now, I think I kind of want this in my generator. Now, I can't afford to get a paid API license for ChatGPT because I am neither independently wealthy nor am I employed right now. So I thought to myself, gosh, it'd be nice if I had a way to run an LLM locally. Now, I'm not going to get anything as robust as GPT-4 or even GPT-5 running on my local system. But one of the kids moved out recently, and we were cleaning out his room, getting ready to move the youngest into that room so that my wife can take over the youngest's room as a craft space and a streaming area and office type thing. And we found a dresser. Let's just quit out of the terminal here and we'll close this finder. And in that dresser, we found an old laptop, and it's decently spec'd, but it's a little messed up. So I was like, I wonder, can I reinstall Windows, set up some development tools, or set up the development tools that I need, and maybe turn it into something that I could remote into and use here. And lo and behold, it works. So what I did is yesterday I installed something called LM Studio. And what that does is it lets me run a small language model locally. So I installed Phi3 Mini from Microsoft. There we go. And I've got this. And I ran some tests against it last night. I asked it, so the species is human. They're currently a healer. They grew up as a hermit. And Phi3 created Willow, the healing hermit, for me. Described her appearance, her personality, her current circumstances, and then a paragraph where it ties her background to her current circumstances and how it contributed to her personality. Now, one of the nice things about using this local LM program, A, it's free, and B, it can expose the LLM as a service. And it looks like it's running, or it appears to be. Right now I just have the Phi3 model running. It says I can select a text embedding model, but that hasn't been working for me yet. So I'm not sure what's going on there. We don't really have any server logs. And it says it's looking at 1, 2, 3, 4. But let's see here. Let's see if it's actually running. LM Studio server, that's the documentation. And localhost 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's load the documentation. And there's a GET request for me. So let's see if we can actually pop this open, add a tab, go to localhost port 1, 2, 3, 4 /v1/models. Doesn't look like the server's running yet, but I'm gonna eject the model, reload Phi3, and it says it's started. There's the start server button. So let's go back over to Edge and refresh. And here we have some information about the models that have been loaded. And we see here we've got the Microsoft Phi3 Mini 4K Instruct. It's running as a model, owned by organization owner. Yeah. Great. Now, I've also brought back the full version of Visual Studio because I actually have access to a Windows laptop. And so I'm going to be able to add in a new project that is hopefully going to connect to that locally running language model, submit the JSON data that is the generated NPC data with a prompt, and get back an NPC description. Now, just before we do that, let's go ahead and run that console app. And it's doing its thing. Yeah. Build. Here we go. So we've got a gnome who is a scholar that grew up as a noble. And I'm going to copy that. And I don't know that I can chat with it while the API is running, but it's worth a shot. Let's do that again with this NPC data. Paste it, go. Now, running locally, it takes a while. It's not super quick. So while that's doing its thing, I want to go back over to Visual Studio. Now, before we add any new projects or solutions or anything like that, we should probably update our architecture. So I'm going to open up Draw.io, and we'll open from Open Recent. No, we got to open from My Device. And I have projects, subfolder for all this stuff. We're going to Docs, Images. Here we go. Now, we need to update this. Yeah, I don't want the desktop app just yet. I might install that later. And let's make that as big as it'll get. And do I have a way to change my zoom? Paste here, copy as image. No, I don't. Okay. So our townsfolk manager, that's just going to generate our JSON. We're going to need another manager. So copy. We're going to paste this over here. Yeah, that's fine. And let's do that. And I'm going to pull these guys. Copy. Multi-select. We're just going to shove those off to the left a little bit. Make some room for the new component. Here we go. Now, this isn't going to be a townsfolk manager. It's going to be... How to move my mouse pad. This is going to be... Thinking. Not a manager. So I'm just going to delete that one. We definitely need a resource access component. And it's not going to be NPC access. It's going to be LLM access. And then we're going to need a new engine. And it's going to be prompt construction or prompt. No, it isn't, because we're not going to use a homegrown prompt renderer. V. This is going to be a manager after all. Intelligent workload manager. And what our intelligent workload manager is going to do is it's going to accept a request from something and run some identified workload to do a thing. And then it's going to contact the large language model. I'm going to go ahead and grab this and paste it we're going to rename, or we're going to rewrite the words in here to, I don't want to rewrite that with Copilot. I just want to edit the darn text. LLM API. Save. Nope. File. Save. Great. Now, our townsfolk manager can't contact the intelligent workload manager. So what we need to do is sort of stuff because we're getting a couple of different use cases out of this. I'm just going to tighten this up a little bit. And while this is still a manager, sort of, it's more like our GM tools workload coordinator. Oh gosh, I can't spell. Coordinator. And it's gonna, I'm gonna just call it API-ish. We're not actually gonna build a formal HTTP API for this. Not yet. But this is gonna behave pretty much as an API. And it's gonna act as a shim layer between all of our clients, the actual workload providers, our managers, and it's going to do a little bit of stuff for us to let us keep our separations of concerns around here. Another thing that I've seen this called is a BFF, or a back-end for front-end pattern, or a more accurate description might be this is the front end to the back end. But people like snappy acronyms, so we're going to stick with BFF. So we need a few more components. First thing we need is the GM tools workload coordinator, an intelligent workload manager, an LLM access, and then of course the LLM API itself. Let's see if our little description of Scriptorius the learned gnome. Oh yeah, a noble gnome of high stature with an affinity for intellectual pursuits. Has a long beard and robes, speak to his scholarly nature, yeah. We've got ourselves a pretty workable NPC, or at least the beginnings of a workable NPC character. Let's go back to our local server. And it's still running, so that's good. And here's this, chat completions, embeddings. I really wish I had more horizontal real estate, or that this thing were open, but it doesn't appear to be movable or anything like that. But that's okay. We can make it work. Oh gosh, this user experience is suboptimal, but that's okay. Like I said, we can make it work. And you can see that my model is only using about 3 and a bit gigs of RAM. All right, so how do we make this happen? Well, first thing I need to do is export my updated diagram. And yeah, that's fine. Export the diagram, transparent background. Yeah. Export to, we're going to export it to my device. We're going to save it. That's in my downloads folder. So, okay, well, let's open this. And I can close Draw IO. And I need to go to, what's that? My folder view. Open this in the File Explorer. And we'll open this. Is it gonna? Yeah, okay. Maybe. What are you doing? It's thinking. Here we go. Good. I don't need the video editor, but I do need to rename this thing. Get rid of this .drawio thing. There. And we can cut this out of my download folder. Paste it in here. Replace it. Great. We should now be able to open this in Visual Studio to see what we've got. What the devil is this doing? I don't want to do that. That's crazy. I just want to view it. All right, goodbye. Can I open it with? Nah, doesn't matter. All right, let's go back to the solution view. And I will go ahead and open that. Projects in here, GM tools, pull this down to my quick access just so that it's there. What are you doing? Let's come over here. Oh, it won't let me. Here we go, pin to quick access. All right. Go to the docs, images, open this up, make sure I've got it available to me. So we need to add a few things. We're going to add a new folder. Add solution folder. And let's call this, well, I'm going to call it the API, but we're not going to add a web API. Add new project. It's just going to be a class library. Come on, here we go. .NET or .NET Standard, Razor class library, C# WPF, .NET Framework. Okay, next. And source, engines framework, new folder, API. It's going to go in there. Game tools dot API dot workload provider. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Next, we want dotNet 8 and create. It is creating the project for me. I'm going to make this text 150 better. Oh yeah, that's much better. All right, so we've got our workload provider. It needs access to our townsfolk manager. Okay. We also need to add a new manager. And what did we call it? Intelligent Workload Manager. Add new project. Now this Intelligent Workload Manager is not going to be exclusively a part of the Game Tools project. It is going to be dot, and instead of intelligent, I'm going to use AI Workload Manager. Okay, hit next, create. We're going to add that manager's project reference to the workload provider. Okay. We're also going to need my utility framework that I started building, or that I started adding stuff to yesterday. All right, now the workload provider, we need a interface. Show all templates, interface, game tools, workloads. Add. And it's going to be public. What are you doing? Here we go. And we are going to say it's going to return a string, generate NPC, bool, include AI equals false. Save it. This class is in the AI Workload Manager. I'm not worried about it yet. Class 1 is Game Tools Workloads. And I don't think I like the iGame tools workloads. I think I prefer to rename this to character workloads. There we go. Yes, I do want to rename that. And I want to go over here to class 1, not game tools workloads, but we'll rename this to character workloads. And I need to change this from game tools to character. Very good. And I got to get used to using Control S instead of Apple S. Oh, what are you doing? There's that. Copy this. We're going to implement it here. Implement that interface. And so this guy has a dependency on our townsfolk manager. Whoops. Private, read only, townsfolk manager. NPC manager. So we've got our contracts. String NPC JSON equals string.empty. Excuse me. Var NPC equals NPC manager. That's not the right thing. What is this doing? Generate townsperson. It doesn't take anything. Var, nope, NPC JSON equals serialize. There we go. What even are you doing? Backspace. I need to create a private string serialize T instance where T is a class. Serializes an object to JSON. uses the JSON functions to strip all properties from a complex object that have not been populated. T, the type of object, an instance of T, and string JSON equals JSON functions. What did I call it? Where's my framework? It's in here, serialization, JSON utilities. Utilities dot get clean return JSON. It looks like Codium and my IntelliSense are having a fight. Okay, I got to do this. We'll use framework serialization. Excellent. And return NPC JSON. Now it hasn't been assigned yet. NPC JSON equals serialize the NPC. Okay. Save it. Our NPC manager has not been assigned. Okay. Well, we need that. I think I need to turn off Codium. It's being really, really pushy. Let's manage our extensions. Installed Codium. Can I just disable it? Or do I have to? Here we go. Disable. Oh, I have to close and reopen Visual Studio. That's a pain. Extensions, Codium. Let's just sign out. Go away. All right, let's save all. Did I disable Codium? I can't remember. Let's make sure. Installed. Okay, the disable is pending. I'm going to go ahead and restart Visual Studio. Now, while that's happening, I want to talk about the implication of me deciding to pivot like this and why it's not going to be a huge deal. And normally when we start an application and we just spin up a new project of whatever type and we start adding code and features and all of that stuff without putting any thought into how the different components are going to be brought in if we just shove everything into the same project, basically. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, you know what? I think you need to, and that somebody has a decent amount of authority, let's say. And that person says, you're going to change course, you're going to pivot, and you're going to add this thing to it. And as you were developing it iteratively, you've got some features in place. It's not it may have some internal structure, but it's not particularly suited for going outside the original stated purpose. So you're essentially changing the fundamental nature of your minimum viable product. Um, Without the structure, it's going to be panic time, and you're going to have to work like heck to get this new thing put together and integrated. And it's going to mess up a lot of the code that you've already got because, of course, the change to one thing spirals out to the rest of the application because it's all tightly coupled and so on. But because I'm approaching this in a modular sense where each little piece of this application is sort of an independent part that doesn't rely too much on the other components. We might have some internal dependencies to like a utility framework or a framework of object definitions that exist just for this solution and the components that live in it. Because we've essentially created a box of Legos, we can add new Legos to that box and reassemble our system to incorporate this new crazy thing that our boss wants us to add, or the project manager or the program manager or whatever. So that gives us a certain level of agility that everybody actually wants without too many of the rituals. Now, one thing that I did forget to do before I dove into this is add my work items. So, I'm going to say adjust, because we didn't rework, we just adjusted the system architecture diagram to incorporate LLM enhancement. Add a shim project between the client and managers to handle the different workloads, because running the LLM query is going to take a long time. We're running it locally. I've got a decently powerful PC over here that I'm remoted into. It's got plenty of RAM. It's got an okay, if more than 5 years out of date, CPU on it, but it's good enough. However, LLM calls are still going to take quite a while, so I don't want to generate the additional character enhancement stuff every time. I just want to say, okay, well, all right, yeah, a dwarf herbalist who grew up as an outlander, that sounds like an interesting NPC. Go ahead and flesh it out. So I want to do that part optionally. I don't want to do it every time. And I think I'm also going to want to do it asynchronously so that that description, it comes back when it's ready, as opposed to locking up the system while the AI is chunking away on its thing. So we're going to have to introduce some new architectural concepts and some new system design concepts as we integrate this stuff. For now, we're just going to do it as an optional generate the NPC and then maybe hand that off to the LLM. Handle the different workloads. And that shim, that's what I'm building over in Visual Studio right now. Add an LLM access component in the resource access components folder. Okay. And that's about all we need for now. So I'm going to convert this to an issue in the GM tools. I'll assign myself. Give it the architecture and planning label. It's there. Don't need a development branch. I do need to edit this. Update the architecture documentation to include newly added utility framework, the LLM resource access component, an LLM, an AI workload manager, an API shim that can compose our two distinct subsystems. Yes, that's actually something I should have. I'm glad I typed that out here. NPC gen and AI workload enhancements. Because we're going to do this AI workload enhancement stuff as a subsystem, as opposed to being an actual tightly tied in part of the GM tools. I want to try and design this AI workload thing in a way that will allow me to use this in other applications that I want to enhance with LLM access. This I'm just going to convert to a issue. I'm going to assign myself. Okay, convert to issue in the GM tools. This is just straight up coding. Edit, create the project, and interface class combo that allows the client app to specify whether or not we want to generate AI enhanced descriptions for our NPCs. Add some unit tests using mocks for the actual subsystem managers. Tie it into the console client app. Excuse me. And let's save this. It's all attached to the correct stuff. All right. And finally, I'll assign myself, convert it to an issue. On the GM tools, let's edit the description, create a resource access project that uses Microsoft's semantic kernel for connecting to and executing prompts against a configurable LLM. Make sure the AI prompt and any supporting data can be passed into a request for completion. Save. This is just coding, and I don't need to set anything else here. Very good. So we've adjusted the system architecture diagram. That can go to done. This is currently in progress. This can go over to the top of to do because we haven't even created the project for that. We are almost to the end of our time, but I think this right here is almost ready for test. And I'm going to get cheesy. Our console client, yeah, in this file are not consistent. Yeah, normalize the darn line endings. And save it. Away. I want to do that. I want to bring up program. And I think instead of using app.npcgen, well, first thing we got to do is add a project reference. And we're going to add the API workload provider. Okay. And the reason I call it an API, I put it in the API namespace, and I called it a workload provider, that's going to become a lot more sensible sounding very, very soon. And it's essentially going to take the place of this generator console. So what I'm going to do is var app equals, first I'm going to comment that out. Oh, what am I doing? I'm terminaled into a Windows box, and I'm trying to use the keystroke combinations that are stored in my muscle memory, and it's causing all manner of insanity. All right, I'll get used to it. There we go. Var app equals, I think instead of var, I'm going to say I character workloads app equals new character workloads, and we're going to say services dot get required service of townsfolk manager. And it needs its semicolon. And instead of calling test npcgen, what are we going to call? Generate npc. What did I just do? Microsoft Visual Basic, go away. Boo. Get rid of this green code. I'm going to leave it for now. Save it. Let's try running it and make sure it works. I want to make sure I haven't broken anything with this refactor. Going. Something blew up. Exited with code 0. All right. Oh, lol. I'm a silly goose. I do need to use the generator console. Actually, no, I don't. It's going to come back out here. String, NPC, NPC JSON equals. I'll get used to these new keystroke combinations eventually. String NPC JSON console.writeLine, not console client. NPC JSON, and it doesn't like console because I probably don't have a reference to system. There we go. Good. All right. Let's try running it now that I've pulled my head out of my butt. And we've got a human who works as a mason who used to be a folk hero. I can close this because that is what I need it to be. I'm going to leave it open. All right, so that's working. I can go back to GitHub. Let's go here. Add the shim project. We good. This afternoon, we're going to dig into adding this LLM access component. We're also going to need to add what did I decide to call it? AI Workload Manager. I think that's what I called it. Let's double check. Yes, AI Workload Manager. Add AI Workload Manager. Hack. Add interface and first implementation class to the AI Workload Manager component. Let's turn this into a task, or an issue rather, in the GM tools. And when we reconvene at 1 o'clock this afternoon, we'll start digging into, I'm going to drive towards actually getting a connection to this local LLM and issuing a simple prompt through its API and displaying the results, maybe in a console or something like that. So this is for the AI Workload Manager component. All right. Add a test LLM method to the interface. Implement that on the Workload Manager class to call into the LLM access provider. passing a simple prompt with no additional data. Use this to make sure we can call our local LLM from C# code. Don't get fancy yet. Save it. All right. Sweet. Last thing before I log off for the morning. I'm connected to main. I need to create a new branch before I do anything else. It's going to be feature, add, basic LLM enhancements. Create it, check it out. I want to bring all of my changes. And that was a wonderful developer experience. I am going to add a commit, and this adds new projects to help introduce LLM capabilities. Can I spell? To the NPC generator. And I'm going to pull Git over to my other system because it lets me do this. 42. What other ones did I add here? I think they're way down the bottom. Oh, come on. Public contracts, create stubs of, create stub of backgrounds, all the way to the bottom. Nope. Okay. Did I put the other things somewhere dumb? Let's go over here and take a look at the issues. See if I can find them here. GM tools. Here we go. Open Sesame. I'll look at the issues. Let's see. So we haven't added the AI access component. Generalized game stats, that, detailed, all of that stuff. We didn't add the LLM access component, and we didn't add this, but we did do all of that other stuff. And let's commit everything. Great. Okay, that is enough for this morning. This afternoon, let's start working on not the character workloads, but we'll start working towards getting the AI workload manager going, or at least to where we can execute a prompt against the local LLM over here and see the results in, say, a console window. or at the very least, stepping through code and hovering over the variable that they get assigned to. So until then, give your heads a shake, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Take care.